Justin, what's up? Good to see you, man.
Yeah, it's good to see you, Brandon.
Yeah. So I wanted to start with how you started Wushu. I'm going to preface this a little bit. Most people think of Wushu as a sport that's best started when you're very, very young. Can you tell us how old were you when you started Wushu, and what was that first year like? How did you get introduced to it, and what was the training like?
I was 21 years old at the very end of my college career. And I didn't start seriously until later that year, and I had turned 22. So starting in the very last week almost of my senior year in college, my college roommate had introduced me to Wushu, and he had told me he had pushed me every day. He's like, come on, let's go to practice. Let's go to practice. I think you would be really good at it. I think you would like it. And I hesitated for a long time for that whole semester. And at the end of the semester, all of the finals were done. So I finally took him up on it. Went to a couple classes, was a little overwhelmed. So I had him teach me on the side in one of the commons rooms, away from everybody else, because I thought I was terrible. So after I had thought I had did well enough, with him to follow, the basic kicks, then I had went into the University of Maryland's Wushu Club, and it took off from there. And the summer I kind of didn't do much because I didn't know where to go. But eventually I had found a Wushu school close by that my roommate had recommended, and a few of my friends had went to. And then that started in maybe August of 2008. So I was 22 when I started.
Wow. And I know we've talked before, and you said that you played high school sports, a bunch of different sports. What sports did you play before Wushu? And do you think that helped you your first year of Wushu?
I played throughout high school, and before high school, I had probably played about 2 sports per season, I want to say. I was playing soccer and football, baseball, tennis, golf. I played a little bit of lacrosse. I did a lot of swimming. And all of these I did competitively to a decently high level. I was on a few club teams. I had done a few traveling teams. I had red-shirted for the soccer team for the University of Maryland when I started there my first year. And to answer the question, yeah, I think it helped me a lot to advance quickly, like having already the muscle and the coordination and the athleticism that all of those sports put together, combined with, throwing and catching, using your feet, working in teams, having that type of critical mentality on how to evaluate yourself as an athlete. I think all of those things really, really helped to, accelerate how fast I was able to pick up Wushu as a sport.
Then how far into your training did you get the idea that you wanted to start competing? Were you attracted to Wushu because it was a martial art, or were you attracted to it because it was a competitive sport, or both?
I think it was more, I think it was both, but I think it was almost more of the challenge, and more of how difficult it was, more of the sport aspect. I mean, growing up, I had loved, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Power Rangers and all the type of kung fu movies, and I loved all that stuff, and Bruce Lee, but it never had pushed me to consider that as like an athletic experience. But I think initially it was, wow, that looks amazing. It looks extremely difficult. I want to try that.
And let's go into your competition career. What were your first competitions that you competed at, and what was your experience like?
My first competition was at the University Wushu Games. I think it was the fourth University Wushu Games at the University of Maryland. They hold that every year. And that was when I had competed as a beginner. I did beginner level forms, and I even modified the beginner form because I don't know. I thought I would already be adding cooler movements into the forms. It was a mistake, by the way. But that first experience was very positive for me. There was a lot of people who were cheering you on. A lot of the competitors cheered you on. It was very like a welcoming environment. It kind of pushed me to enjoy competition more than if my first competition was like my first team trials competition where everyone kind of separated. Your coach was like, don't talk to nobody, like try to use your own headspace. So it was a very good introduction to competition for me because it didn't make it seem like it was a chore, and it was fun. There's all of, people similar ages, college level people, and they were all super supportive, and they were all cheering no matter what age no matter what skill level you were. They were, trying to give you positive feedback. And if you came off, even if you did terrible, they'd be like, great job, man, great job. So I really liked that part of it. I didn't start seriously competing until 2011 was my first attempt at a team trial. So that was the first serious one that kind of brought me down and like, all right, this is no joke anymore. You gotta, these dudes are insane. So
how did you decide to try out in 2011?
I honestly don't know if I remember. I think it was just the thing to do. I was like, this is the next step. I had done a few other competitions, smaller competitions, the one in New Jersey, there's a couple in DC locally. And I think it was just like, do you want to try it? Do you want to go? I don't think I ever thought that I'd be the best or the top, but it was kind of like, if you want to start competing at this level, you have to experience it at that level. If you don't, it's a totally different environment. You get psyched out even more than regular competitions. And you just go in more nervous, and you have to get that feeling under your belt. Competing is a whole different type of training, a whole different type of practice. You can practice as much as you can, but unless you go to competition and think of it as that is still training for you, then it'll be really difficult in order to maintain your composure under pressure unless you've experienced it before. So I think it was just the next progression in my competitive career that you have to do this or else you're never going to be able to, reach a higher level.
Mm-hmm. So when you came after 2011 team trials, obviously you didn't make a team, but did it change your outlook on Wushu? Did it change how you trained? Did it change your goals for what you wanted out of Wushu?
Immediately, yes. It made me super fired up to like go back into practice, and like the next day I was practicing again. I don't think I ever took like a celebration break, like, oh, you made it through. It was like I'm in there early morning, and then I'll be there that night, and then I'll go to Turp Wushu practices even more, and I'll train harder. I'll look at more YouTube videos. I'll try to get more feedback from other athletes and coaches. So I think it fired me up to do more. And I think that's been the same every competition, no matter how well I did. Even if I had gotten a gold medal, or even if I had done in the top 3, at any level of competition, I came back just being like, there were some guys out there that I'd never seen do stuff that I've never seen before. So I'm gonna do that now.
So then you went back in 2013, but I know that you trained in China in 2012.
Yes.
Was that part of your training goal to make the team? Was that just for your own personal interest? Hey, I want to go to the motherland of Wushu. What were the reasons behind it?
It was kind of both. I think my coach, Coach Zhang, pushed me to go there. He had asked me if I was interested, and I think it would have been a good next step in order to learn, the next part of Wushu that you might not get here. You can see your competition. You can see the people that you would be competing against if you're going to a world championship. And then on the flip side, I just really was interested and excited to go. I was learning some Chinese. I was trying to, get into that whole world, the whole sphere of, Wushu as a whole.
So what was that training like? What was your experience there?
Oh, it was intense. It was very intense. The first week, you're super excited. You're like, I'm going to show these people what I can do. I mean, I didn't really know what was going on. I've only been in Wushu for 8, 9, 10, 11, 3 years, 3.5 years, something like that. But so I had never seen anyone of that skill level up close. And when I'd gone there, I was like, all right, I'm gonna show them I got the highest jump kick I've ever done there. And the first day, you are so hyped up. You're doing kicks faster than you've ever done them before. You're doing jumps higher and spinning more than you've never spun before. And then the next day, you can't move. And you had done 9 hours the first day, 9 hours of practicing that you've never done before. The next day, you're super sore. You kind of stretch through it. So you get into it again. And by the end of the week, you are so sore that it's just unbearable to like, you lose everything. You can't do a jump kick anymore. You can't do an outside kick anymore. But then I think I was there for about a month. And it wasn't until the third week that I thought I was making progress, like all my physical ability and my understanding. But I think the most impactful thing of going to China was watching them train and just being like, wow, that's what you have to do in order to be how they are. Like, you can't cut corners. If you think you're gonna, beat some of them without that dedication, then you're kind of fooling yourself. So that mentality of going there and seeing these guys are doing it for a living. This is their job. They get a paycheck. So if I want to try to compete against that, I have to have a similar type of mindset. Even though we don't have enough time, we can still, use other methods in order to try and make the training as dedicated and as focused as they are. So I thought that was one of the best takeaways I could get from going to China.
Wow. Yeah, I can imagine. I trained in China as well. And I remember just the physicality of it and being in a place where you can eat, sleep, wushu every day for several weeks on end. Were you learning specific forms, new techniques, new weapons, or what did you bring back? I had just kind of followed along with their A team. I went to Beijing, so I was with the Beijing A team. I think A and B at that time were on 1 and 2 carpets, but in the same time period, training together. So I was kind of training with both of their A and B team. But it was kind of just like, we'll help you with your form, because I had already had an individual form at the time. So we will help you out with your form. They didn't teach me a whole new form. They didn't teach me, they didn't teach me a whole new form. So they would focus really heavily on your basics, on your weapon basics, and they would look at your movements and say, all right, this is how you need to do it better. This is how you need to do it faster. And I had some of the kids who were able to kids. Kids to you.
Some of the kids were able to speak a little bit of English, and I had a little bit of translation. My Chinese wasn't great, so I had a little bit of translation from them. They would show me kind of how to do it, and I would almost get more out of them doing it just from me, like looking at them and saying, oh, this is what they're doing. They're leaning back so much more than I'm leaning back, or using their body in a certain way. So I took back, how they use their body to perform certain movements. And I don't know if you would say it's correct or not, but it definitely makes it look extremely impressive, the way that they do movements, including just a front snap kick, maybe just a front kick punch, like the way that they turn their body and open up their shoulders to do the full motion of the kick and the punch instead of keeping your shoulders maybe square. I know you can't see me, but it gives you a different level of movement that they do that I had not done for just basic movements.
So then let's go back to Team Trials 2013. This is the first year that you make A team, right? Yeah. And at that Team Trials, you could do compulsory forms or individual. Mm-hmm. Yes. What was different about your preparation for 2013 than your first time in 2011?
2013, I had 4 forms instead of 3. I think, yeah, 4 forms. So the amount of time that you need to practice 4 forms in a given week is limited. Like, you can't practice all 4 forms every day, or else you won't improve, or you might, but you'll have really small incremental improvements for each form, as opposed to making leaps in certain forms and then transitioning to another form. So in 2013, I had much more of a long-term plan as far as physical conditioning went, as far as my mental thing, as far as my competition experience up until 2013. I had planned out, this is when I'm going to do this. This is when I'm going to do this. I'm going to focus on Guiding Changchun at this part of my, 6 months out. And then 5.5 months out, we'll switch over to some improving my weapon basics. So it was much more calculated. And I had planned out my competitions also. So I knew that I'm going to do this competition this day, this competition another day. And I would make sure that I'm doing the forms that I'm practicing in those competitions. So I wouldn't do all 4 forms at every competition. That didn't seem right to me, or it didn't seem like it was beneficial to me when you have a team trials that's 2 days and you're more likely than not going to have 4 forms in 2 days. Mm-hmm. So you would try to make it as close to competition as possible, including the environment that you're practicing in. Coach Jiang was super detailed about it. So if you're going in to a summer competition and you may or may not know the venue, if the venue has air conditioning, it's going to be cold in the competition. You have to figure out when to warm up. And then if you go into the competition area too early, or you cool down because it's cold, you need to have that environment while you're practicing or while you're doing your form in order to give you the best possible scenario for training that'll match what you're going to be at competition. So it was way more like structured than 2011 was like, I'm going to go for it. 2013 was like, this is how I'm going to make the team, is by doing these things.
Yeah. So were those lessons on how to prepare and those tips on know the venue, don't warm up too soon, don't go into an air conditioned building too early, are those things that people specifically told you from Jiang Banjun, or were these things that you picked up by going to different competitions and talking to other competitors?
A little bit of both. I think a lot of it, I have to give a lot of credit to Coach Jiang Banjun, and also Mario Martinez was very cognizant of that at the time, including physical condition and when you needed to do it. Don't be doing heavy squats the day before competition, like that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. So I have to give a lot of credit to Coach Jiang. He was very, cognitive about that type of environment. And I'm sure he had gone through it years and years. So his wealth of knowledge was very, very beneficial. And then since I was older, I had a little bit more of an independent thought on what I should be doing and how my body feels, and make sure you do things smart. You don't do things too crazy. There's no reason to do like 400 tornadoes that day, because at some point it's diminishing returns. If you're tired and you're trying to do tornado, your form's going to change, and you wanted it to be as consistent as possible. So there's a few things that I would take just from, my own experience, but a lot of it came from Coach Jiang for sure.
Wow. So when you finally make it to Worlds, and this was not the first Worlds that you had seen. You'd actually gone as a spectator to the Toronto World Wushu Championships. But what was your experience like at the World Championships in 2013? And I want to bring it back to your age. By that time, you are now 26?
What year is this? 2013?
2013?
Yeah.
I mean, I got to ask, how does it feel to be out there knowing that you're a good maybe 8 years older than the average competitor?
It was interesting, but I think what held it together that year, especially because our team was 2 of my friends were good friends were on the team with me, like similar ages. So Jason Liu and Jeffrey Louis were my teammates. So I was able to keep it together because they both were like all right, we got our own old people stuff to worry about, and we can watch these young kids go and practice, and then we'll go out and have fun afterwards. And so it wasn't too much on my mind, is what I want to say.
Were you happy with your performance your first time at Worlds?
Yeah, I was pretty happy. I was super nervous. My first Worlds, I was super nervous. But I think that it was a good learning experience to be at another, like, that's the next step, another competition where you can experience that, how you can handle that pressure, how you warm up, looking at these incredible athletes and then like practicing alongside them or like warming up alongside them. I kind of got tunnel visioned a few times into, like, especially the first event, my first event. You're training and then you're warming up and stretching next to these guys, and they're just do 720 here. I'm just going to do 720 over there. And I'm like, yeah, I can't do that. So, like, I had already written myself off. I'm like, all right, well, I'm just here for fun. I'm just going to watch you guys, and then I'll go after you guys. But as it turned out, I did fairly well. I did okay. I got in the top 10 in a few of them, and I think I got 4th place in the Chongquan. So I did better than I expected, which gave me a little bit of a boost. But I definitely fell into the hole of, like, I'm watching them. I didn't get as good of a warm-up as I could have because I felt a little bit nervous or scared to go out on the floor with them. You got the Korean guys doing butterflies over top of me. So, yeah, it was an interesting experience for sure.
Nice. So you came back after your first Worlds, and what was on your mind? Were you like, I want to go back, I'm definitely going out for team trials again? Or were you like, I got to take a break? What were those next couple of years like for you training?
It was the same as my first team trials. It was like super excited. It's like, holy smokes, now I'm going to get my 720s. Now I'm going to do this. Now I'm going to do that. And it was just another huge boost, maybe for at least a couple months of just nonstop. Just like, I didn't perform to what I wanted to. And I assume that's the same for a lot of athletes. I assume every athlete, no matter where you finish, you probably always have, I messed up that one thing. So there's always something that you're reflecting on. And for me, I reflected on the whole competition, and then I was just, ready to go. I got to gear up, suit up next day, next week, every single day. I'm out there, doing my form or learning certain movements or trying to improve my choreography. Or there's so many aspects of it, which is what I love about Wushu. There's so many things that you can improve on. There's, a host of athletic movements. There's your mental state, your choreography, your pauses, things that you don't really get in other sports. Like I never got that in any of the other sports that I played.
Yeah. So between 2013, which is your first Worlds, and then 2015, which is the next team trials and the next Worlds for you, how did your training change? Were you focused more on power, intensity? What lessons do you take back from Worlds? I want to have that Wushu feeling. I need to have more mature movements, or were you like, I need to jump higher, spin faster?
It was all of it. Yeah. It became even more of a structured type. 2 years of a structured plan. He's like, all right, what do I do now? Now I have 2 years to my next competition. What can I do in the beginning of those 2 years? And it's like, all right, now I need to gain general strength. I need to have the strength and the power and the explosiveness in order to jump, in order to spin, in order to do all these things. And I'm like a long, tall, scrawny guy. So I needed this muscle in order to jump higher and then land without getting injured. But it was a full 2 years of scheduling, including my trips to China, where I had known that if I'm going to China this day, I'll go to the Henan team. And then 2 weeks before that, I need to be ready. I need to practice as much as I can in order to get there and not have that first week or even first 2 weeks of just dealing with soreness. So like that amount of planning went a lot into what, I was doing for the next 2 years up until 2015.
So you were actually training to prepare for training in China.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. And including having like certain days where you lift and train, or train and lift and train. And I would just try to work it out, like wake up super early in the morning, do like a run or sprints, or I would do like as fast kicks as I can to get that quick stretch and pull with your hamstring. Cause that's what gets me. Like if my hamstrings are sore, it's because of the basic kicks in the beginning and because I haven't done them enough for my body to be used to it. So I just get sore the next day, and then your kicks are lower. You're sore more the next day. I think it's called delayed onset muscle soreness, DOMS. So if you have that in China, you're not going to get as much out of China as you want. So yeah, I had structured my days before China, after China, throughout the whole 2 years as like a calculated, this is how I'm going to get better.
Wow. So you have been to Worlds several times. Was there a particular World Championship that is your favorite, or a specific experience you had that's particularly memorable?
I think they were all memorable. Like I can remember, different get-togethers after the competition. I can remember meeting people that you had seen online during the competition, and every person is super supportive, and they're all like friends around the world. But that same experience comes back every year, because I never really shut myself out from, the environment. I know that a lot of teams do. It's like, it's hard to, talk to the Chinese team or the Japanese team because their coaches, shut them out. We're a little bit more relaxed as far as it goes when it comes to Worlds. But my experience is just one of just complete global friendship. It's like, it's something it's amazing to me that you could have anything in the world that's politically going wrong, and you're still great friends with the people in this community, from anywhere in the world, no matter how much English or what language you speak. It's pretty, it's amazing to me. So I find that really, really fun and enjoyable and positive.
Wow. I wanted to switch gears. There was something that Eugene mentioned during your introduction that I'd almost forgot about, is that you were part of the Wushu group at the Nanjing Junior Olympics, the kind of sports lab thing, right? Oh, there you go. For people that don't know, what was Sports Lab? That was what it's called.
Yes.
Why was Wushu there? How did you get to be a part of the group that was there? And it must have been wild. What was that like?
It's probably the best experience of my entire Wushu career. So, Sports Lab was a group of 4 sports that were not yet in the Olympics, that were showcased at the Junior Olympics in 2014 in Nanjing, China. And they had this huge venue with a giant, there was some speed climbing or sport climbing, I believe. And then there was speed skating. I hope I'm not getting these wrong. But there was skateboarding, which I believe now is in the Olympics or will be. Sport climbing and speed skating. So it's like it's kind of like NASCAR on rollerblades. So it's pretty wild. But Wushu was one of the 4, and then they had a huge carpet. It was outside. There was a giant track that went around that where all the speed skaters would skate around. There was a huge rock wall and then a giant skate park, all in this one thing. And then there are huge amounts of tourist people. It looked like Disneyland almost every day. So every day we had done, I want to say 2 to 4 demos every single day for about 2 weeks, I want to say. And we just showcased Wushu to the masses and also to the members of the International Olympic Committee. We had met the president of the IOC, and then we had taught people. So we had random people that got chosen from the audience to come up to the carpet, and we taught them some wushu. And we had interacted with the Olympic Village, and then we had some demos in the Olympic Village. So it was an unreal experience where you were just, shuttled from one place to another, doing these things like you were a celebrity. People were asking for autographs. Like it was crazy. So it was probably one of the best experiences I've ever had.
Wow. And going back to your comment before about the global wushu community of athletes, you were there representing the United States. Mario Martinez was also from the United States, but there were athletes from Russia, Italy, Iran. I mean, it was Ukraine. It was truly a global representation there. That must have been incredibly fun.
Yeah, there was a set of 3 people from China who were doing Duilian. Mm-hmm. And then I think there was 2 other Chinese people. And then the other 10 or so people were from everywhere around the world. So it was awesome being together with all these people from a different, culture and different environment. And then they all were promoting the sport as a team. It was probably one of the first times that I felt like it was almost a team sport and not an individual type of sport. Like we were a team trying to promote one thing to the world, to the Olympic Committee. So,
and now wushu will be in the next Junior Olympics in 2022, right? Amazing, amazing. That's 8 years later, made some progress.
Yeah,
I wanted to switch.
Progress. Sport climbing made progress. Yeah. I don't know about speed skating, but hopefully they did. And then wushu's in the Junior Olympics. So yeah, it seemed to be a pretty. It was well taken. Yeah. Awesome.
I wanted to switch gears into something that may have been a negative time in your life, but I think a positivity came out of it. You suffered a pretty severe injury in wushu with your knee. Can you tell us what the injury was, how it happened, but more importantly, what was that road to rehab and coming back to the sport like?
Mm-hmm. So I had torn my ACL in December 2016, and it was from doing a 720 outside. And I had landed it, but there was, I don't know if it was sweat or water or something on the carpet. And then my left foot hit the slick spot and slipped out. And then it took me after I had torn it the same day, I was doing like squats. I was doing single leg squats. I was like, I didn't hear a pop. It didn't hurt that bad. Like it didn't hurt at all.
Doing squats after you tore your ACL.
Yeah, I was doing squats. I was doing a bow stance, and Mario was like, "Cool it, man. Just what are you doing?" So that day I had just gone back and I thought it was nothing, and I went immediately got a MRI. I went to a doctor, and they had pretty much said that I had torn my ACL. So at that point, I immediately wanted to get surgery. I'm like, I want to get surgery and get back as fast as possible. I don't want to wait. I have the luxury of, I don't need to do anything. My work was already teleworking at work, so I could work at home. So I had the luxury of being able to do it super fast and have my surgery done within 1 month. I think it was like 3 weeks or something. So it was a very fast recovery, or very fast.
That is fast. I mean, I've known some wushu athletes who tear their ACL and it might be 6 months, 8 months down the road when they get surgery. I remember during this time period when you were coming back, you were posting some crazy videos of like some super scientific sports therapy with like pressure. What are they called?
Force plates.
Yeah, force things. Yeah. Tell us about that time in your life and how it helped you recover, but also how did it help you change how you trained wushu?
Mm-hmm. So I had gone to a local physical therapy place. Probably most people do. I was lucky enough to have one of the best physical therapists, and he wasn't a physical therapist, but he was like I forget what they call them, the people who tell you how to do the movements after you get adjusted or whatever. Mm-hmm. So he had gone above and beyond, because he was super into Bruce Lee, loved Kung Fu stuff. He was like, I'm going to get you back to your glory days. So he took it upon himself to give me like 2-3 hours of physical training almost 3 to 4 times a week. And then he would like message me. We're still good friends today. And this is back in 2017. So 3 years later, I'm still keeping in touch with him. But so I had gotten back super fast. I had gotten my muscle back super quickly. And then the only thing that I had needed, which was like my mental, like you kind of have like a mental block. Even if you feel stronger, you're scared to do certain movements. And then this was, 3 months in probably. So 3 months into my training, I had already done an aerial after about 3 months of rehab. And then from then he recommended this one guy in DC who trains professional athletes from the Redskins and the Capitals and the Wizards and, professional teams around the area. And they had a completely different system than I've ever seen before. And professional athletes have, all of this that's available to them is amazing. So I would come into their facility, and the first thing I would do is do a depth jump. I would jump off of a box onto a force plate and react as high as I could. So jump as high as I can off the force plate and as fast as you can. And based on my reaction time and the force that I generated, they would tell me what to do that day. So if I was reacting really fast and I was putting a lot of force down, they'd be like, all right, you're going to do some plyometric today. You're going to do some heavy lifting today. Or if I like stuck to the ground and I didn't feel my central nervous system wasn't firing, then they'd be like, all right, this is a recovery day. We're going to work on some upper body. We're going to work on some stability. You're going to do an ice bath. Like, it was very, very structured. And after I had gone through a good amount of time, I want to say, 5 to 6 months of that, I felt better than I've ever felt before. Like, it didn't feel like I had an issue with my knee. And then I had my whole sheet of goals that I wanted to achieve. And I achieved them way faster than the timeline that I had put myself out there based on other people's recommendations.
What were some of those goals?
So it was getting back to my 100% back squat, deadlift, vertical leap height, which I had done for different things before I started Wushu. I had certain movements, so I had to get my, 360 tornado. And then my last goal was 720 outside. That was my last goal.
The move that hurt your ACL on.
Yeah. And then eventually
were you scared? It had to have been scary to throw that move again.
Yeah. It was extremely scary. And you just start slow. You do your 540s, you do your 630s. And then just one day I was just feeling good and I'm like, all right, I'm going to do it. It's going to be the day. And it didn't happen like the first time, but maybe like 5 days after I started working on it, I finally got back, the one thing that hurt me, and I'm not going to do it again, but I got it. And that's what that was like the pinnacle, or like the fruition of my recovery, that I thought, all right, now I'm back. Now I feel good about myself.
So Justin, I know now you've transitioned from being a competitor and an athlete to being a teacher. But before we get into the teaching part, was it a conscious decision to stop competing, or did you just kind of slowly stop competing? And what was going through your mind?
Slow. I still feel like I want to compete, like right today. I still do. But I think, it was a very slow decision. Like, I really wanted to get back out there, and certain things happened. Like, obviously 2016 was it was 6 months after I had torn my ACL or something like that, 6 or 7 months. And I was almost ready to go. I was like this close. And I'm like, I really want to go and I really want to compete. So I started training. I started doing my forms. And then so many people that I had talked to, including international friends and competitors, they're like, man, I know what you're feeling. I think you should take a little bit more time. And then it kind of got to me, and I'm like, they're probably right. I'm pretty stubborn person. Very like when I set myself to do something, that's all I do. That's all I think about. And in some ways it's a bad thing. In some ways it's a good thing. But in this case, it was good that I didn't. In my opinion, I think it was good that I didn't go back too early, because you never know what'll happen in competition time. If you're a little bit compromised, you want to make it. You want to make your landings in competition. So if you're even a little bit compromised in competition, you're not going to think protect yourself when you land. You're going to think stick it, as best you can, because you don't want to mess up. Yeah. And I think that could have gone wrong at competition. It may or may not have, but I think it was a good decision. Okay. 2019 was more or less I didn't have the time to train like I wanted to. So I opened my school at the end of 2018. We were super busy up until team trials. I had tried to start training, but I was kind of juggling 2 jobs. And then I was also helping Zhang with some of her PhD requirements, like editing or things that needed help. So I just didn't feel like I had enough time to practice in order to show my best self out on the carpet. So, and for me, I don't like to stay the same. If I'm going to do the same form at the same way for multiple years, I'd rather try something new or try to improve in some way or show a better form of myself. And if I can't do that, then I'll be more hesitant to do it. So that's pretty much what happened.
Got it. Well, you mentioned your school, and I want to get into that next. I just want to take a quick break. We've got about 10 to 15 minutes left in our interview with Justin Benedik. If any of the attendees have questions for Justin, please type them in the chat, and I'll try to leave a few minutes at the end to get to some of those, hopefully. But you mentioned your school, which is where you are right now. Mm-hmm. How did you decide to transition to not only teaching, but to opening your own school? That's quite a big jump.
Yeah, I had been teaching since 2010 or 11, like teaching kids, and then teaching a little bit at the University of Maryland alongside some of my friends there. And I think the leap to create a school was more like how can I extend what I know and continue Wushu from myself to the next generation, or to promote the sport in a way that'll be positive. And I think that was the motivation behind why I wanted to do it. And then the big push behind it was because Zhang Yang really thought that I could do it, and then gave me support, both mentally and financially, and saying that this would be a great help to the next generation in order to teach what you know, or else what you know is kind of lost. Like you don't want to lose your experience. You want to kind of pass on your experience, and you can do that through your kids, or you can do that through training at a Chinese school. And we were fortunate enough to find a good enough deal to be able to go full blown into a school where we can help more kids at a time. That's pretty much. And for the attendees who don't know, Zhang Yang is your? She is my fiance right now.
Oh, all right. And so, also a former Chinese Wushu athlete.
Yes, she is a former Henan team, A team athlete, where she was competing. If you know, she was competing with Zhao Kun, a really good straight sword guy. Wang Cong, Ma Lan was one of her girl teammates. Very, very good team at that time.
How do you teach Wushu differently than how you were taught? Or do you?
I teach it very systematically. There's a lot of progression in when I teach certain movements. A lot of super good Chinese athletes, I want to say Chinese because most of the athletes that taught me were Chinese, or most of the people who had taught me were Chinese. They're so good, and then they've learned from such a young age that they don't remember when they weren't good, or they don't remember when they didn't know how to do certain movements. If you've ever had someone say, just jump higher for an aerial, I mean, that's true, but how do you jump higher? So like things that I learned since I started at an older age, I was able to internalize a lot of the movements and saying, all right, this is the way that I need to do it, using physics or using something else. Because I have also an engineering degree, so I was very looking at the details, super detailed. So if you're doing a sword flower, do you just whip the sword flower around as fast as you can, or how do you use your body, or where do you position your hand in order to make the sword flower as fast as possible, to give you the best mechanical advantage in using the weapon. So that's the kind of the way that I teach. I try to break down movements, in smaller parts and then speed them up to a point where they're doing them correctly, but can still do them fast. So that when they do them fast, the movement doesn't degrade into something that'll either hurt their shoulder or hurt their hips or, look ugly, something like that.
If the 22-year-old guy walked into your school and says, hey, I want to learn Wushu and I hope to make the U.S. team one day, what would you tell them?
I got you, bro. I know what it's like. I'll groom you into what you need to be. Because at that point, it's managing. If you're gonna get hurt, you gotta not get hurt. The biggest thing about being older, if you get hurt, it takes way longer to come back. So,
ain't that the truth, man?
Yeah.
So one more topic I wanted to touch on. In addition to you being a competitive athlete and a judge at U.S. competitions, your participation in the Junior Olympics, and now being a school owner, you also are involved in an international Wushu community in a different way. You're on the athletes committee for the International Wushu Federation. Tell us, what is that? How did you get involved? And tell us what it's like.
So the International Wushu Committee's Athletes Committee is a group of people from a bunch of different disciplines. So we have a member from Brazil and Iran and Russia and US for myself, Egypt, and I think that's it. We were looking to add another person, but a lot of different people, and each person brings their own different experience to the table. Including we have Sanda athletes, we have Zhangchen athletes, we have Nanshan athletes. And the idea is to have a committee who it's run by athletes who is somewhat disconnected from the IWF, but still within a certain amount of guidelines so that they can bring the experience of the athlete and athletes to the IWF so that changes could possibly be made to benefit athletes either before their Wushu career, during their Wushu career, or after their Wushu career. So that's the main goal of the athletes committee.
And do you all meet virtually like this on Zoom or chats, or do you actually meet in person?
So before I had joined, which was I want to say 2 years ago. Before I had joined, they had done a committee meeting at each competition, at the international competitions. And now we're trying to do at least two. We want to try to do at least two meetings, either Zoom. I think before it was just kind of some type of Skype program, but I guess Zoom is so huge now, we'll probably use Zoom. But Zoom, and then also at the world competitions as well.
Got it.
Meetings.
Got it. Really interesting. So we're coming down to the end of our time here. I don't see any questions from the attendees, although there's still time if you want to put that in the chat. But I have a couple questions.
Sure.
You've had such a successful competition career, and now you're coaching, and you're talking about passing on your knowledge to the next generation. For a young Wushu athlete, whether it's in the United States or wherever, if they have aspirations of making their national team, what kind of tips do you have for them?
For how young?
Oh, I don't know. Let's 15.
All right, 15. At 15, you're in high school, right? I would say the biggest thing you could do at 15 is find the time to train with the focus that you want. So if you have a lot of different sports going on, then it might be difficult to devote enough time to Wushu training in order to make the team. If you're really serious about making the Wushu team, I think you need to treat it as if you're treating like your homework, or you need to be able to set aside a certain amount of time each day in order to work or focus on a specific aspect of your training in order to get better. Don't train. Even let's say you're head of school and you already have the mindset that you should train every day. If you're at a school already and you have a instructor or teacher, it's not up to him for you to make the team. It's up to you to make the team, right? He can only help you get there, but you need to go in with a focus. And you need to say, this is where I need to get better. I need to get better in Changchun. I need to get better in broadsword. So you need to go in with that and have a discourse with your coach and saying, I'm really serious about this. I need to work an hour of broadsword basics to get better at broadsword. And then I need to have a focus or a goal that I need to get to, whether it be speed, whether it be shenfa, your body movement, or whether it be choreography. But you need to make sure you focus on specific things when you practice and not go into practice. You do your kicks, you do every form, you do every movement. If you do that, you will only get better really slowly, like over time. But you need to, if you can specifically work out certain days that you're going to get better at this. I'm going to get better at my first half Changchun for the first half of this week, and that's what I'm going to work on for the whole first half of this week to make a huge jump in my ability as a Changchun athlete for my first half of my Changchun form. So very specific plan, and then extend it over a certain amount of time so that you improve on everything. If you do everything every day, you won't have enough time to improve in a short amount of time. But if you segment your training and then you improve huge leaps on certain parts and certain aspects of your form, or certain aspects of yourself, whether it be strength or, your form or choreo, that's how you're going to make the most improvement and give yourself the best shot at making the national team. In my opinion.
We do have one quick question. I think you might have answered this before. This is from Dusty from Arizona. Dusty says,
Hey, Dusty.
Do you plan to compete again?
I want to. My plan now is yes, but whether or not I will have the time to be able to, I don't know. But since there is definitely a big possibility of the World Championship coming to the United States, that would be an awesome opportunity just because it's here. I don't even need to travel. So that would be, if anything, I would still be there for sure. But it would be fun to compete again for sure.
Okay. I have one final question, and I'm going to bring us back to the beginning of our conversation. You started Wushu, in Wushu terms, really, really late. Like I started when I thought I was old, but you were really old. 2, you are really tall for Wushu, and to be honest, you don't have the body type that one would say is conducive to being good for Wushu. So, and yet you reached a very high competitive level, great competition results, U.S. team multiple times. What do you attribute your success to?
I'm gonna say my attitude, my stubbornness, my dedication to getting better. Like it kind of goes all the way back to when I was little, and even when I was little, every single day I'd have like an hour working on drills with a soccer ball. The next hour I'd be working on saxophone. The next hour I'd be working on my pitch for baseball. So I was like, I needed to be better than the person who was above me. And it's hard when you're at the top, and I've never been. So I've always had something to strive for. And I think that dedication and then that ability to just turn everything else off and say, this is what I need to do, and I need to focus on this in order to get better and improve myself. I think that more than anything else pushed me. I was pushing myself. That pushed me to get better. I think if you rely on somebody else to push you, then ultimately you won't make it as high as your potential will allow you to make it. You have to push yourself.
Wise words, Justin. Thank you so much for taking your time out to do this interview for us for the USAWKF. Thank you to all the attendees that joined us today, but we're out of time right now. Hope to see you at the next Wushu competition, wherever or whenever that will be. This is Justin Benedik. My name is Brandon Sugiyama, and everybody hold tight for the next presentation. Thanks a lot, Justin.
Thank you.